As always, hey, how you doing? And as always, can you please let me know that my audio is fine? Because I keep going back and forth, and sometimes it's not fine. Sometimes it's all right. Sometimes it resets to default. Should probably get this up. It's good? Sounds good? All right. Legible. I mean, it can go up. It can go down. I don't want to be peaking. All right. Perfect. Now, I have one problem to fix because I can hear my audio coming from somewhere, and it might be my phone. Okay, we're just going to deal with that. How's everybody? Definitely up. Come on. Come on. There. I'm maxing. I found... Okay, wait. I found the culprit. Hey, everybody. So we meet again together under the electric sky. I'm performing as plastic pills, but you already know that. I can't imagine that you would have been fed this video otherwise. In our live space. This is a live stream about live streams, Metastream. I think it's actually better now because I'm trying to like shove my face into the microphone. I maxed out on my end, so not much to update. We got a new podcast, new video this week. This video, I think it's one of my personal favorites because I like videos better when they are less didactic. And you know what? Those didactic videos do well, and this one's not doing too hot. But you know, I find explanations to be boring, and explanations about how you should think to be boring. They don't offer much of a challenge in the way of interpretation. But also, when it comes to interpretation, your audience has to trust you enough to think that there's some interpretation that's worth spending time on. Oh, and David, as always, keeping my life going, keeping my Chipotle spending habits on point. Thanks so much, man. And I don't think videos should not be didactic. I just prefer like some gap between what's said and what can be interpreted. And usually just giving archival footage and then putting a narrative with it, I think it's more interesting, at least to me. I wish more people would make videos like that instead of trying to explain to me, because I don't like being talked down to, and maybe that's not the best way. Maybe it's not the best use of the medium. I like graphics, man. I like making graphics. I like not being on camera. So I did come to a bit of a realization when I was deciding whether or not to do this stream, because you probably noticed, or you may have noticed, that I put it up at like 11 o'clock because I didn't want to do it. And here's a bit of a confession. The reason I didn't want to do it is because I'm a narcissist, and that isn't news to me. That's not the realization, because I've gone through psychoanalysis. But it certainly makes live streaming induce anxiety for me, and live streaming particularly, because I make quite a bit of content, but the whole live thing makes me way more nervous, and I wondered if some people would connect to this, because I want to explain what being a narcissist is. So the common definition of narcissist, if you see it on like a TV show or something, is that a narcissist is someone who is obsessed with themselves. And that might be true in some other psychology method or in some, pop definition. But psychoanalytically, that's incorrect. A narcissist, psychoanalytically, and this is like Freud, Lacan, and Melanie Klein, basically. So a narcissist is someone with an inflated ego. But that doesn't mean that you love yourself. That would be the mistake. I mean, that is a kind of narcissist. But the inflated ego part is in the Lacanian schema, you can have different views of the other, like the big other, the other with the capital A or capital O in English. And you assign a certain consistency to that other, which means how real do you think the other is? Because you know the other's in your head, you know that rationally, but that doesn't mean that you act as though the other's in your head. You always act as if the other is out there. So there's the sort of narcissist that is the common definition of the word narcissist, and they think that they are important, which is the definition of being a narcissist, but they also think that the other desires them or should desire them or owe them their desire. And that's kind of the common version of a narcissist that you see on TV, or when people say it in common conversation. That person's a narcissist, they're obsessed with themselves. But the other kind of narcissist, and what I think is more common from my experience, the people that I know, is that it's called a paranoiac narcissist, because again, I've gone through analysis. But the paranoiac narcissist thinks that the other's gaze is hostile. So you'd say like the other is critical, or the other is waiting for you to screw up, or you're worried that if you do something wrong, then the other's not going to desire you anymore. So if you think that that other is hostile, then you might be some sort of paranoiac narcissist. Whereas the regular run-of-the-mill narcissist, that I think is actually less common than people make it seem, that person thinks that the other owes them desire. So this term imposter syndrome is thrown around a lot. And I think there's a lot of, academics, or maybe like just intellectuals with a few followers, like me, I guess. And the imposter part is that you feel like the other is going to realize that you suck as much as you think you suck. But again, the definition of a narcissist is that you overrate your own significance. So, and don't get me wrong, there are those other types of narcissists. The other type of narcissist is the person who believes that they're the next Hegel and that their research is amazing and they're going to write a book that everyone's going to read and they're so much more intelligent than everyone around them. Those kind of people don't tend to get very far because they're incapable of self-criticism. They think success is owed to them. But on the paranoiac side of the spectrum, you're more self-critical than anyone else would actually be of you. So if it were up to me, I would never be in a video. And I think that might come as a surprise. I wouldn't ever do a live stream. I wouldn't even narrate a video if it were up to me, because I'd like to disappear into the stuff that I like to do, which is write and animate and create mood and not have myself be even associated with it. But you know, it's impossible to do that. I can't afford to do that. It's pretty hard to make interesting content like that. But anyway, shout out to the paranoiac narcissists. I know there's at least someone out there who knows exactly what I'm talking about. And the thing that a paranoiac needs to remember is don't be anxious. Take comfort in the fact that nobody actually gives a shit about you. And to some people, I'm sure that sounds terrifying, but to a paranoiac, it's a relief because it doesn't matter if you're smart or funny or interesting because nobody cares anyway. So my hype up speech to myself when I'm ready to do one of these things is not, you're special, you're important, you got this. My hype up speech to myself is take comfort in the fact that nobody actually gives a shit and we can just make this disappear after. So that's how I get my relief, sigh of relief. So I never got this whole behavioral therapy thing where you gotta like tell yourself that you love yourself, that you're important, because it's way more relieving to me to tell myself that I'm not important. It's not, I don't have to be perfect. No one cares. No one will remember. God doesn't exist. The other is just in your head. Anyway, that's it. That's it about myself. I felt like someone might get that. The subject today is actually live news, live stream. A stream of what? What is this a stream of? Can anyone step in the same stream twice? FeedBrain. Now, FeedBrain is something that I think I brought it up last time I was on here. It should maybe be classified as an illness, or conversely, maybe it's a new stage of humanity. But in any case, the direct precursor to FeedBrain is live news brain, or CNN brain. So we think in media, according to me and McLuhan and Stiegler and Baudrillard, but we think in media and through this constant repetition of media, and particularly as our friend, the sage of Toronto, Marshall McLuhan himself, says, the medium is the message. So if the medium is the message, then what are we doing here? And what is the message of news? Because it's not the content. We've spent thousands of years thinking that the message of different media are their content. But if McLuhan is right, then the content doesn't actually matter. The content is accidental to the message. Oh, thanks, David. Thanks a lot, man. Actually, appreciate that. So content, separate it, put it aside. That's not what media is for. That's not even what this medium is for. Even though we're doing like a self-reflexive, what is the message of live news? And yeah, I checked what's going on with CNN today or yesterday when I was like writing this. Joe Rogan is the subject of CNN right now. Why the fuck is CNN reporting on the medical decisions of a podcaster? Today, that counts as news. So we have to separate the content. I don't know why this is of interest to them. But it connects to my recent content in that CNN was basically created for the Gulf War. CNN exists so that we could watch the Gulf War in real time. But the message of news, generally speaking, not just this kind of news, but news, is that there is always more news. Now, I want to say that again so it sinks in. The meaning of news is that there is more of it. There's no need to focus on the content and say, why is this news? Why is this not news? What it's telling you is that there's more news. This is a Marshall McLuhan type thesis. So more than you actually need to pay attention to the content, you pay attention to this message, that there's a big, complicated world out there. And in this world, things happen. And you need to be informed. Like you specifically, you need to be a recipient of information. You need to be the terminal end of a data stream, just like you are right now. You are the end of this data stream. And actually, you're participants in this data stream, but we'll get to that. So that's you. And we're in real time right now. So real. Gotta ask what that means. Obviously, it's important. It's important to Lacan, important to Baudrillard. The real's gone. But we're in real time right now, and what's real about it is that this medium, this live stream medium, folds back onto itself as content so that we can explain what's happening as it's happening. And I'm doing that self-reflexively. We're doing some meta shit here. But if McLuhan is right, then that's all that live news does. It's giving value to the present. It's giving value to present information in the present. And again, if the medium is the message, the content is not the message. It's the medium itself. So we can't forget, I don't think, we can't forget that real time is not actually time. Real time is a technology. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to call it real time because we'd just already be in it. But real time is a technology, and in particular, it's a military technology. It was invented by the military, for the military, and then so that we could watch the Gulf War. CNN exists because of the Gulf War, the first real-time war. So you don't have to miss any of it. You get to be a participant, a terminal end, a live participant, and this is for you now. It's made for you. You're not observing history. You are part of history. You get to be in the armored personnel carrier with the soldiers. You get to see the bombs striking buildings. Like, this is about you. This is content for you as a user. And now you, or this has been civilianized, and now we are sitting here together having like a chat. I'm chatting at you because usually if I focus too much on the chat stream, then I can't pay attention to my notes, which gets annoying because then I'm going, so exactly like just happened, by the way. So this is not itself the novelty of new media, because news has always been whatever the fastest medium at the time is. Whether it's a messenger on horseback bringing the news, then a newspaper bringing the news, then a TV bringing the news, whatever is fastest gets that job. So now it's the feed, because the feed is the fastest thing we got. And you can't really get faster than that because it's instantaneous from anywhere in the world, real time. And the novelty of it's called new media often in the scholarship. New media just means anything after writing. Usually it's TV, sometimes includes radio, but mostly new media is like digital media, which is live and real. So the message of the medium, because the medium is the message, is that there's always something new on its way. And this is the condition of what I'm calling FeedBrain, because putting new names on shit's always fun. So the FeedBrain is the thing that never can exist in this normal linear time that we would call past, present, future, because it's always anticipating the next moment of the future, but that next moment of the future is always immediately becoming present. So I talked 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago about like kind of my view of time, which is just Deleuze mixed with Bergson and Whitehead, basically. But anyway, time as these folds that interact. So you have nostalgia, which is a fake past in a present. Or you have memory, which is basically a past with a present in it, you could say. Or anticipation, which is a sense of the future in the present. And you get all these little folds that kind of articulate what you think the image of time is. We don't live in one time at a time. We live in multiple times at a time. So live news, though, live news kind of destroys any long-term future, and it certainly destroys the past because it doesn't have really a meaning for the past. If you're focusing on the past, then you're going to miss whatever's coming next because it creates this anticipation of whatever is going to be right now, which is kind of the anxiety of FeedBrain, right? It's called news because it's always new. And if you're bored of what's happening right now, then you can change it. You have that choice. As soon as you get bored of what I'm saying, you're going to go find another live stream to go drift down like a leaf. So history is obliterated. Any long-term sense of the future is obliterated. And I don't know if it was Baudrillard or Debord. I can't remember. One of them, though, said that everywhere today, the explanation has to arrive before the event. So these images that we get from the Gulf War or whatever you want to call it these days, some protest, the explanation comes as the image. And everything is explained before it even gets to you. And again, the original purpose of real time was to create a military technology. It's about control. The faster you can communicate, the easier it is to control space. Oh, thanks, Ian. Ian told me it was Baudrillard who said that, not Debord. I got a Debord quote coming up, though. So, controlling space. Now, control is important because when we think of control, when we think of mind control or controlling a population, we tend to think of repression or suppression. And control, in the sense of a control society, is new in that it doesn't need to repress and it doesn't need to suppress, really, with force. I mean, the threat is always there because you don't actually just transition from one society to the next. You live in ecologies. that include aspects of both. But like Deleuze's control society, for example, is written contrary to the disciplinary society that forces you to control yourself through self-repression. You know, Bentham's Panopticon, written on by Foucault. Foucault writes a whole bunch on this. Freud writes about society as being a whole bunch of repression and a whole bunch of complexes that develop as a result of repression. So because you're repressing these instincts, these visceral, carnal instincts all the time, then every once in a while it explodes into war. Freud wrote in Why War, I think it was called. And the Oedipus complex, of course, is the very first site of repression, the site of repression that you can never get rid of. But this new form of control is not repressive. It's just controlling channels. So repression means you're not allowed to do what you want because you're going to be punished for it. And that is the basis of our definition of society, going back to the social contract, going back to that Hobbes shit, where Hobbes is like, you're going to get along with people because you're going to repress your freedom because you're afraid that other people are going to kill you. So if you repress your instincts, then others are going to promise to repress their instincts, and we can all get along. But the basis of the control contract, as opposed to the social contract, is that you're free now to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But the control is that you only have a few options available to you. You can enter the door if you have, a little key card that lets you in. You can enter any website you want as long as you have the password for it. And so, Baudrillard said, forget Foucault, because the disciplinary view of society was already too late. We've already entered this thing where control is not about repression anymore. Control is about managing channels, or steering, I think I said in something that I made. Kyberneticos is the steersman of a ship. So do whatever you want. I can't keep you here. I can't punish you for leaving. I can't punish you for trolling the chat. I mean, I could kick you out, but I don't know if that's a punishment if you're trolling the chat anyway. But do whatever you want in this live real-time space means the second that I get boring to you, you can turn off this stream and go to another stream. So live media, and just the amount of live media there is today, obviously, means there's always something more there. You don't have to repress yourself into being patient or to being, delayed gratification, because why would you? Back in my day, when you were watching TV, you would watch a TV show because you didn't want to miss the next TV show. Because if you miss it, then you miss it and you can't watch it. So you'll watch shows that you don't like, even because the one that you actually want to watch is coming on later. And same with radio, I presume. Don't worry, I'm not that old. But there's no, that you have to wait for your show because it's not up to you, is kind of a form of repression. But you repress, or suppress, I guess. You suppress your boredom because it's not up to you. Now, the feed, it's 100% up to you. The second you're bored, put on the next thing. You don't like the first 5 minutes of a show, find the next show. Go to the next one on your queue. So, FeedBrain is like live news brain, but it's also live news brain without any repression. Its control is only managing your access to different channels. And I mean channels, not as in like a TV channel, but the channels of information. So this is free. Netflix, if you've paid for it, then you have access to all of it. Whatever channel, as long as you have access, then it's 100% up to you. And now you're probably going to be thinking that I'm shitting on FeedBrain here, and not really. I mean, a little bit. But the boomer take on this, actually, I shouldn't say boomer take. It's older than boomers. It's like 2,000 years old. But let's say the alarmist take on this. The alarmist take is like, oh no, this new freedom of choice, this new lack of discipline is going to destroy kids. Society as we know it is over because no one can wait for anything. Nobody has patience. But this happens with every new technology all the time. I wrote a paper on this, and there was a quote from like 1897. So, older than everybody in here. 1897, when phones started getting put into people's house. And it was New York Times, and this journalist said, if we put a phone in everyone's house, then soon we're going to be nothing but transparent heaps of jelly to each other. So this journalist, this alarmist, was bemoaning the fact that if we break the boundary between public and private, then we're all going to become transparent. We're going to have nothing inside us anymore. We're going to be completely see-through to each other. The same thing happens with films. When films, for the first time, added sound, the talkies, all the film nerds of the day, whenever this was, I guess like 1920s or 30s, they said the era of film is over because now they're adding sound to it. I don't really get the thought process. There's probably, I wish I knew, but no, films are over now that we've added sound to them. So we can see where this hand-wringing shit is coming from over Gen Z. Don't worry, I do it too. But I work in an institution and work with other people from institutions. And what I always hear endlessly from my educational colleagues is that these kids can't focus, they can't pay attention, they can't read more than 5 pages, so you can't even assign like a 10-page reading because they won't do it. And, there is truth to that. 100% there's truth to that. If there's a SparkNotes version, you can bet that that's going to be the one that is gone to first. And I'm sure that FeedBrain is a condition that creates mental illnesses in some sense. I mean, that term is sus, by the way, mental illness. It just means what was different from 50 years before. But probably new mental illnesses, new kinds of anxiety. But what it doesn't do is create new complexes. Because for a complex, you need repression. And now there's nothing left to be repressed because you never have to be bored. You never have to wait. And anything that makes you wait, like trying to understand a difficult reading, for example, that becomes a lot harder. But this is not specific to Gen Z. I guess I should be saying Gen Z. It's not really patriotic of me to use that pronunciation. So Gen Z. That sounds fucking weird. Anyway, Gen Z is not the specific recipient of having FeedBrain. I have FeedBrain. I used to be way better at reading before I got a smartphone, and I was admittedly and intentionally very late adapter to that because I didn't want one. I didn't want that in my face all day. And I wish I had stuck with it. But look at what happened when the boomers got Facebook. They went nuts. It's not like a generational specific thing. I think it's really a media specific thing. Like, how much time do you intentionally spend with one medium versus another medium? And that would be the question, by the way, that Marshall McLuhan would be really interested in. By the way, since in these chapters, I guess this is chapter 3 of my, what did we say last time? I was going to call it pharmacy or something. Anyway, chapter 3, we're going back into history, and the very first feed alarmist was Socrates. The boomer. And he was an alarmist about writing, which sounds funny. This is in the Phaedrus, by the way. And again, there's some levels of interpretation that we have to get through, because Phaedrus is a bit of writing about Socrates telling a story about someone else who doesn't trust writing, but Socrates agrees, but Plato is writing this all down. So is Plato being ironic? I don't know. I'm not intelligent enough to interpret that anyway. I think that Plato had a sense of transparency about his writing, about Socrates talking. Socrates thought it was bad to write anything down, so he didn't. Plato wrote it down for him, and now we have his record. Anyway, Phaedrus, the story, is there's this king of Egypt, Thamus. Now, Thamus is a god comes to him, and the god's name is Thoth, the Egyptian god of writing. And Thoth says to him, Thamus, I got this gift for you. I have a gift that'll make it so your people don't forget anything anymore. I'm going to improve their memory like 1,000 times. And the gift is writing, because obviously if you write something down, you don't forget it. We all do that. But Thamus thinks about it, comes back and says, no, I don't want that. And he doesn't want it because if you rely on writing to do all your memory for you, then you're not doing any of your own memory. So Thoth goes, no, you're not actually trying to make us have better memories. You're going to actually poison our memories if I accept this gift, because no one's going to remember anything with their own mind anymore. We're just going to be relying on writing to do it all the time. I'm sure we can connect with that. But, I mean, to put this in context, in another dialogue called the Phaedo, Socrates kind of outlines what he thinks memory is, or knowledge is, I should say. And that's that your soul, before it got trapped in your body, before you became like locked in this mortal coil, your soul was flying around in the world of forms, and it saw the truth of it saw the truth of these forms. Then when your soul got locked in your body, then you forgot them all. So what real memory is for Socrates is remembering what your soul knew before you were born. And that's truth. So memory for him is anamnesis, which means unforgetting. I think that's right. I might be fucking that up. Aletheia? Aletheia means unforgetting. Anyway, now I'm a deer in headlights because I can't... What the hell's anamnesis? Tell me in the chat if I'm mixing these two up. Aletheia is Heidegger. Okay, whatever. We're unforgetting the thing that we forgot when we got stuck in our body. And if we use writing, if we use an external object to do our remembering for us, okay, good. Thank you, Ian. Save my ass. Anamnesis is remembering the past life. So you remember your life before you were born. And if we use writing to do that, then you're not using your natural memory, because your natural memory is your true memory, that your soul actually has these real memories about what happens before you were born. So this is the first alarmist, and alarmists this century say a whole bunch of things. Kids have no sense of history. Kids are self-absorbed, which is pretty ironic coming from boomers. Kids can't focus. And you know what? Like there's truth to that. We all have FeedBrain. But everyone has FeedBrain. And those who complain about, remember back in the day when we were assigned 10 pages to read and we did it, like if that's even true, it's not like one is naturally better or naturally better for education. These are just, that's a feature of book brain. So we're not comparing natural mind to feed brain. We're just comparing book brain to feed brain and kind of arbitrarily deciding that one is better than the other. Like, how would you use a mind to measure which kind of mind is the best mind? It would have to basically come down to preference and historical contingency. So if McLuhan is right, there isn't a natural mind. It's just whichever thing you use most often is going to define the features of how you think. Whether that's an oral culture or whether that's a literate culture or whether that's a new oral culture, which is what McLuhan thinks happens after the literate culture when we go back to a global village. De Boer has this awesome critique of McLuhan's global village. I think I've brought this up before. But he's like, if you want a global village back, you think that we're going to just like have a guitar circle and sing Kumbaya. But no, if you have a village, you're going to get all the shitty stuff, like weird hierarchies that make no sense. Everybody's gossiping about each other. There's like weird competitions with you and your family members. This is going to be the village you get. Anyway. So, book brain. What was I on about book brain? Books. This is the main difference that I see anyway. Books give you history. Like Thoth said, they give you memory. They give you memory that lasts generations if you have writing. You can lay out all of history in a few books or have this like supra-historical book like the Bible that has the beginning of time all the way to the end of time. And more than that, you can manage a large state with a lot of books, like a large territory. You can have books of the law, books of precedents, all the decisions that have been made up till now, the laws that are going to unify a large community. And that's why you can have religions of the book. So a Mexican Christian and a Chinese Christian, even though they might not have much in common in their like day-to-day life or even their culture, they're unified by this book that is supposedly like supra historical. So empires of the book are possible when you can manage so much space and more than that, so much time, like generations stacked on top of each other because you profess that like this book is especially true or especially important. We are a people defined by this book, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, or even like empires that are managed by codes of law that are fit into a whole bunch of books. Now we still have that. That didn't go away. But the end of empires is the end of books also. This is what I've been talking about on these streams with Virilio. Because Virilio is big into the concept of globalization, where borders are lifted off of the earth in real time. Because if everything is communicating in real time, what really is a border for? If currency just moves from bank account to the Cayman Islands and back again, like what's a border for? Borders are something for the rest of us to believe in, while information can just transfer where it wants almost all the time. So it's not like one age just ends and the other age then begins. It's more like these ecologies are sort of stacked on top of each other. We have features of states that still apply, and then we have globalization, which undoes some of those features of states and keeps it going in other senses. But real time is everywhere. It's not local. It's not in any one place. It's not controlled from a center. An empire must radiate out from a center. But globalization doesn't have a center. It's pure power in a pure present, irrespective of borders, boundaries, and all that. It's deterritorialized. So Guy Debord was on this as narrative connects history to politics, because history for him was eradicated by the mass media already in the 60s, which is why he's often called like a prophetic theorist. And he has this phrase that I really like. He says, we're going to be forever now condemned to an eternity of noisy insignificance. Meaning, advertising culture is like a great example of it. Just a deluge of images, sounds, and slogans. And it becomes really surprising that this guy wrote before Instagram, because he might as well be describing Instagram. But the deluge for him already in the 60s, maybe it's 70s. I gotta check the date. I think it's 70s. Anyway, he said, there's one more quotation. In Greece, democracy, oh crap, what is it? I think I wrote it down. Oh. In Greece, history and democracy entered the world at the same time because they had, Thucydides as a historian. And he says we can prove their disappearance has also been simultaneous. Because you can't create historical projects in real time. Because the only thing that matters is 5 seconds in the future while you're always anticipating what comes next. And if something new doesn't come next immediately, this is what makes the feed brain anxious. So we can't go too far in this thesis without bringing up some McLuhan. McLuhan called this like the Gutenberg galaxy, is this one of literate written culture. And then we're moving from this literate written culture into one of new media. But unlike these alarmists, McLuhan has a sense, and I use that word intentionally, sense. He has a sense that these are kind of ecologies of media that interact, they compete, they take up certain spaces and not others. So whatever's the fastest medium is always going to be the medium of what we call news. That's why, newspapers are dying. That's the thing that everyone bemoans. We don't have a newspaper culture anymore. But it's because the thing that they're good at, the internet's way better at. It's way faster. That doesn't mean that we don't have books anymore, though. So we have these ecologies of media that sit alongside each other, and they kind of negotiate and jockey for position. Some of them become legacy media that we kind of use as a novelty, which is a paradoxical term, but like a record player. A lot of people have record players, and I think last year or the year before was the year of the most record sales in like 30 years because people are again buying records. But it's not like once a new medium shows up, then all the other ones disappear. It's they find new positions. And it's not like we can't read anymore. I always encourage you to read. So I always push back on my colleagues when they say, like, I don't know how to teach. They get frustrated, and this happens in staff rooms all the time, is I don't know how to deal with these kids. They won't do their reading. Because presumably the way that they've been taught to educate means you read. And I'm going to say at the end why I think that you still should read, because it provides some friction. But anyway, there's no natural superiority of this kind of slow, methodical literacy that doesn't apply to FeedBrain, because you can see the way that the FeedBrain, like I said, it infects the boomers, or even older than boomers, honestly, like grandparents. They don't seem to have a natural resistance to, or a natural critical attitude towards what they see on social media. Whereas I think we do, like, by and large. Probably because if you grow up watching the news, when these news corporations had a monopoly on the control of information, you never need to doubt it. So they see it on the computer screen, and they don't know that that's like susceptible to being doubted, or that it could lie. Why would the news lie to you? Why would your Facebook lie to you? But Cluin always talks about there was no natural resistance in Germany to the radio, and you can't have fascism without the radio. Now I wonder if that's probably a contentious claim, but you can see some truth to it. Like you turn on the radio in your private space, in your home, in your car, and you hear this guy freaking out about the international Jewry taking over your country. Like, why would this guy lie to me? He's coming on the radio. He got on the radio in the first place. He must have some authority. But then, this is McLuhan's point, is you can build up these natural resistances by ratioing different types of media. So you can be all in on hot media, you can be all in on cold media, and you kind of develop sense ratios between them. And I don't just mean senses like eyes and hearing, but you also get a sense of time from each medium. So I'm never going to tell you that reading's bad. I think reading is like almost more necessary than ever, but that's because that different medium is kind of the thing that can get you out of your feed brain, which is why I recommend spending at least a day a week just doing something else, getting rid of your phone. Because I notice in a week you get like almost desperate, almost like frantic about getting more information. And again, that's exactly what you'd expect, because the message of the feed is that there's always more. So if you're not getting some, you don't have it, you need to get it. And I think it's not necessary, right? You can get out of it somehow. When you're, I don't know. Well, like, I want to say this properly, or at least coherently. If your favorite streamer takes a day off, do you get anxious? Or like, oh fuck, what do I do now? If Facebook goes down for a day, or I guess most people don't use Facebook. If Instagram goes down for a day, do you get anxious? If your Wi-Fi goes down, are you like then turning on data so you can use your data to get your info fix? This is almost like the feed brain needs to participate. It needs to be liking or getting likes, or just simply like receiving new information. This refresh. Reality is always waiting to be updated, and it's anxiety inducing when that's not happening, because that's a straight up correlate of what the feed is. The message of the feed is that you're always about to get some new shit. It's always in transit. It's always on the way. So, you know, when your favorite peeps, when your favorite uploaders are not uploading, then you can't get that sweet information drip. So your mind's on the feed, this frictionless real time, which is not the same as a complex. I don't know what you'd call it, because it's not a complex, just like, I don't know, maybe a pathology, or maybe it's just your brain becoming feed-like. that not participating produces anxiety. It's like when Instagram goes down, then your symbolic order collapses, and the source of anxiety, which is all of a sudden and not participating, then the fear of being nothing rushes at you. And if you're only a subject because of your constant participation in this shit, then clicking and getting notifications and getting comments and getting responses, as soon as you take away that thing that the subject needs, then you take away the mirror of the mirror stage, your constant mirror stage. Is if that's what's making me. If you take it away, then you're left with the yawning chasm of the real just gaping at you. I don't know. I feel it, which is, the refresh thumb. It's a condition. You get like some calluses on there. J5. Old technologies become art once obsolete. McLuhan paraphrase. Inkwell, turntables, typewriters, gaming consoles. Oh yeah, totally. Like, just because we have a word processor doesn't mean we don't write with our hand. But what do we write with our hand for? It's usually for like art or making cards for somebody. If you want to make a handmade card, that's real cute, So they get, I think, remediated. I think that's the term. They get remediated, but they take on a niche function or a special function, which is why, if you're really hip, then you go get your record player. So the main thing that I'm drawing here as the feed, as opposed to just live news media, is the participation, constant participation, even if it's just commenting, even if you're just liking. That's like the record of you in a group project. But it's not participation in a group project in the sense of participating in history, because history takes too long. History takes years, decades, generations. Political projects, communism takes a lot of time. The FeedBrain doesn't even know what taking a lot of time is. All it knows is something new is coming that's 1 minute away. There's no such thing as 25 years away, because the future is what's going to happen in 1 minute from now. And also the past doesn't exist. So we could say I was talking one of the previous times about how constant gaze, constant surveillance destroys the spatial horizon. Similarly, with the feed, there's no time horizon. There's this ecstatic, immediate, now, forever. And that's it. That's like what you're left with. 5 minutes in the future, and the past doesn't exist. There's no projects. There's no hidden future. When something is behind the horizon, you'd say it's hidden. But if there's no horizon, there's nothing that's hidden. There's just an immediate, eternal present, this ongoing flux of now. And another quote that I think from De Boer that's telling is he says, when the spectacle stops talking about something for 3 days, it's like it never existed. I'm like, damn, dude, that's generous. You're giving a news cycle 3 days? Of course, he wrote that in the 70s. Actually, that might be from Comments on the Society of Spectacle, which was written in the early 90s. Anyway, our news cycle is way less than 3 days now. It's like 6 hours that CNN is talking about whatever Joe Rogan is taking as his medicine, And David, shout out to you. I recognize you. or I misrecognize you if that's the best that I can do. Now, here we get to consequences, and I'm going to overstate it a little bit, I think, because remember, we're never fully demediated. We're not like outside of whatever the past media, what would you call it? Ecology. We're never out of the old media ecology. It's still with us. But if we lived in pure real time, no history, no repression, then there's a serious question as to whether there are even subjects anymore, whether subjects even exist. Because being a subject is historically emergent. You know, Hobbes' whole social contract thing, he says this happened in the past. Same with Locke, same with Rousseau. We can tell a story about when we used to be this. We used to be in the state of nature. Now we are in a state of civil society. To make these grandiose statements in the first place, and to even have limits to history, to say we were in one age, then we moved to a different one. You know, Marx does the same thing. You need a time horizon. So if the time horizon's gone, there is no subject, and there is no politics, like Debord said. You can't have a group historical project without a time horizon. And again, it's not completely obliterated, but it's in the process of being obliterated. And also, for there to be a psychoanalytic subject, for there to be a Freudian subject, the basis of that is repression and complexes. The Oedipus complex is the thing that makes you a subject. And, you know, Lacan's updated version of the Oedipus complex. I don't believe, whatever, you guys get it. If you don't have complexes and you don't have repression, then how do you have subjectivity? It certainly doesn't look like it did before. And if there is nothing disrupting desire, right? Because the whole point of being a subject is that you have to repress your desire and then direct it towards different things. You pick up projects, you pick up things that you think are important. That's where your desire goes. If there's no repression, then you're just a node of desire in, like, what, a feed loop? And then you're not a person. You're just like, you're a user, but who's being used? You're just a node, a terminal node. Not even a terminal node. You're just a loop of an algorithm. So who's using who? Are we users? Who's using who? The feed is using you to rank other people's content for them. So, like, what's special about you? If you dropped out of the feed, it would operate exactly as it already does. So this is like a supra-organism. Whitehead would call it a superject, because a superject is societies of decision makers that coalesce for a certain goal. And depending on the feed, whether it's, you know, YouTube or Instagram or whatever, you're building a superject organism as opposed to like a subject organism. So these millions of decisions make just a larger desiring machine, and we become like weirdly addicted to it. So we're just subsets of algorithms that have personality tags. And then it ranks you or organizes your data by your personality tag, says, oh, you like this content? Here's more of what other people like you liked. You bought this. Here's what other users bought. And then you know, your only decision is, okay, do I buy this thing that other people bought or not? So you're classified as just whatever someone else like you is like, as a collection of past decisions. And your agency is very limited. It's very much controlled. Your agency is controlled. Your node of information processing. Now, is this all good or bad? I don't know. I think if you know anything about me, you know that I'm not going to answer that. I just think it's worth thinking about, and it's not thought about enough, because the way a lot of authors go, the way a lot of journalists go, it's just pretending that we live in the same world that we lived in 50 years ago. And we don't. It's not that world. And that's why I want to talk about it, because this is a new ecology competing with, interfering with, and creating absolutely different kinds of people than otherwise. Now, again, I got to say this like probably for the third time. It's not like one replaces the other. We still go to school. We still learn to read. We still get taught how to obey authority. There's still these aspects of disciplinary society, literate society. We still have borders, got to get a passport, got to pay taxes to a specific government. So all that stuff still happens. That's not gone, which is why we're able to pretend like we're in the same world as we were 50 years ago. But all this new stuff is changing consumption. It's changing the way we speak to each other. It's changing, most of all, our sense of time, because it's not a completed process. But competing senses of time and competing media spheres and competing sensory apparatuses bring to the fore like new not only minds, but mind viruses and mind sicknesses that we're, I don't know, if we're not looking at them, woefully unprepared to deal with. And I can even see this in my own life, like when I used to be good at reading, and now it's harder for me to read unless I basically put my phone in a drawer and don't look at it. So there's this other smooth space that's put a smooth map put on top of the other world, and most people just think we're stuck in that other world. And that's what... So what is the problem? The problem, I gotta go back to, is that eternal... what does he say again? The eternity of noisy insignificance. That's De Boer's line. Because that feels like... It makes you feel politically helpless, obviously. Like, we have climate change, gonna kill us all. What do? I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna go on Twitter. That's a terrifying powerlessness. Then getting into slogan fights, getting into calling people labels, trying to decide who's a real leftist and who's not a real leftist. Like, what a fucking waste of time. Then moving from outrage to outrage. Here's what Joe Rogan did. What an asshole. And here's what Ted Cruz did. Blah, 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 blah. Let's just get pissed and then immediately forget what happened. You don't even know what you were mad about last week anymore. And that's what the... Oh, sorry, David. I don't know what Baudrillard's transistor is. You're going to have to give me... Send me the link to it. I don't know if I've ever heard that before. What was I being passionate about? Oh, yeah. Moving from outrage to outrage, and then forgetting that it all ever happened. Like, it's so frustrating. I've been told many times by many people, if you want to have a career as a YouTuber, you got to get on fucking Twitter more, and you got to tweet every day, and you got to Instagram every day. I'm physically incapable because it's nauseating. I can't do it. I have tried. You can see... If you go back in the history, there's like 3 days in a row I tweeted and then I had to stop. I can't do it. It's not worth it. But this kind of mind is what the feed demands of you. Non-reflective, immediate judgment. This is the thing. Like when you sloganize someone, you go, I don't like that. I don't like that person. I don't like the way they make content. I don't like what they say. these snap judgments, I don't like it. My opinion matters. You tweet that to your 45 followers. 2 of them like it. Now you exist in the world. Snap judgments. On to the next data stream. So yeah, we're in real time. You're in my stream, but I'm also in your stream. You're misrecognizing me as an individual coming to sit on your phone or coming to sit on your computer or whatever you're doing. And we're both being used by it. And actually, my buddy Eric from the podcast, brought up this term, and I want to use it to, like, eventually I'm going to do a hopeful one of these. I have to reread a book first, but I'm working on it. A hopeful one of these is going to involve aesthetics. Aesthetics means that which is sensible. And what Eric said on the podcast, the one that I put up this morning, is that the news, this whole media ecology, is made to anesthetize us. So if you want to do the etymology there, break it down. To be anesthetized means you're put to sleep or you're numbed, but etymologically it means without sense. The falling into a medium. No, this is better. Falling into a mirror, which is what is creating our subjectivity. The mirror stage is social media. It's unreflective to fall into that. You want to look at the reflection. You want some way to be able to look into the reflection, because just falling into it is to be anesthetized by media. And it's not a good look. That's what FeedBrain, I mean complete FeedBrain. I don't think anyone has complete FeedBrain. But to fall straight into it is to just numb yourself. So, shit. I was about to give advice. I said I would never give advice. I'll give advice. It's not real advice. Just go touch grass. I like when people say this phrase, because it just means you're way too online. You've fallen too far into the mirror. Go touch grass means go make some sense. Don't be anesthetized. Go get sensitized. That would be the opposite. Get sensitized. Go make something. Learn to draw. Produce some friction is really the goal here. Reading a book, I think, just produces friction against FeedBrain. Because thinking is about producing differences, not about repeating the old ideas for no reason. So there's a quotation that comes to mind. I can't remember who said it, but I read it sometime in the last 2 weeks. And it's something like this. It takes no intelligence to see everyone around you and everything around you as the same. It takes intelligence, or the intelligent person, I'm unsure. The intelligent person is that which can see the difference in literally everything, because everything is different from each other. So this immediate judgment is about sloganizing, categorizing, deciding who's real and who's fake, and, whatever. As cathartic as it is, it's... Okay, I'll speak for myself, so I'm not giving advice. I'd rather be the person that can recognize difference and not the person that's the first to jump into categories all the time. I just don't think it's a good look. But that's just me. That's the end of my notes, so makes sense there. One rule for life makes sense. Oh, Francisco, you're totally right. Like you need big categories to speak. Language is about producing large categories. But you can get too simplistic, and the thing that makes FeedBrain unattractive to me is that it's so immediate in making categories. It doesn't let any difference sit around. There's no difference in that kind of image of thought. It's a paradox. You're right. If you flee America to Canada, can I get residency easily? Yeah. Well, I don't know about residency. I think takes a couple of years. I've had a few friends who did it. It takes about 3 years. Green, but you have to get a job. I think you can't just be in school. You have to get a job after school, and then you can probably stay. Did Kant mention something about categorical thinking? He talks about categorical thinking a lot, but it's not actually putting things into categories. It's a bit of a misnomer. It's categorical in the sense that it's true for all things of a certain type at a certain time. Kant also has a lot to say about aesthetics. An entire book, in fact. The transcendental categories of experience are space and time. I've been talking a lot about space and time. Oh. Carrie, that's real mature. Aesthetics. What is my take on the importance of religion versus theology? I don't think religion's too important. Theology can be interesting as long as you don't believe it's true. Jokes, jokes, jokes. Thank you. As I said at the beginning, I need validation. Actually, you know what? It's not true. No matter how many times you say, this was great, thank you for it, it's still my entire conceptual horizon that views the other as hostile. So if 99 people say to me, this was great, and then one person says, this was fucking shit, you're an idiot, then I'll go, see, I knew it. I knew that I shouldn't do this. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but that's what the paranoiac mindset is. Ian, you're asking questions that you already know my answer to. Do you think that humanity is in control of its destiny? I think I think systems are in control of our destiny, and we can't stop them. We've spent so much time like fueling this momentum that we need an equivalent accident to occur if we can just decide, oh, now we're going to make decisions again. Or collapses. When collapses happen, you can actually, wrest some control back. But as long as the systems are healthy, as long as they're able to adapt to new changes, no matter how much Marxist shit you tweet, it's not going to matter. Not saying stop tweeting Marxist shit. You can always use more Marxist shit. Oh, God. Were you arguing about whether capitalism is real? I don't understand these, like, this is not real, that is not real. It's not really the way language works, Are you familiar with the Unabomber's thoughts? I haven't read the manifesto. You need, like, to decide to make these claims. I don't understand, like, what your theory of language would have to entail for you to just be like, capitalism's not real. That's just saying capitalism doesn't describe anything that exists. I don't know how you could even say that. Like, even capitalists think that it describes something. So you're saying, like, the word doesn't refer to anything? The word's useless, and every single person who said the word is just like, what, high? Am I a determinist? I'm mostly a determinist. I mean, like, free will really highly depends on what you think freedom is. Do you think that freedom means absolutely non-contingent? Because of course there's no such thing as free will. If free will means, like, if someone gives you 2 cups to pick up, can you pick one up or the other? Then if that's, like, what is it called, the weak argument for free will, I think. Weak free will, fine. But, like, freedom as opposed to contingency, no, of course there's no free will. But it depends on, again, what you mean by the word. Because if the word references something, then that's something, like, it exists. Well, every word is used by different people to mean different things. It doesn't mean if people use a word for different things, then there's no reference whatsoever. Yeah, I know you would say something like that, dude. I know you would say that, but nobody else would say that. Like, you'd have to just... Anyway, I'm done with that argument. Ooh, you're slowly becoming hard? You're slowly becoming a hard determinist. Hot. No, you didn't even say hard determinist. I prefer not to. Thank you. I prefer not to. I think that's as good a philosophy as as any for the moment. I agree. We're being too hair splitty. Like, to have an argument like this, you would have to like kind of decide what you think you mean by these words. But just coming out and going, this thing that I don't like the way you talk about doesn't exist. It's a strange thing to say. This actually Eeyore-ish. I've put the last 3 streams on Patreon, but public, so anyone can go and see them. But I don't know what the fuck is up with YouTube. It's so hard to find a live stream because it's in a different place, and I can't even find my own live streams. So if they are public, I can put them on the Patreon site and make them public so that you can find them again after the fact. And I'll keep doing that, like, because it's the only place I have on the internet to post stuff that's stored there forever. So yes, your answer to Eeyore is yes. Am I familiar with Peter Rollins? Peter Rollins is the pyrotheology guy, I think, right? I think he does a podcast with someone, and that guy messaged me. All right, this is the hardest question I've gotten, and I don't know how to answer it, but I think it's important. From Francisco. How does FeedBrain and related subjects relate to new forms of collective agency that can come after the death of mass politics and strong union formations? I have no idea. I think to get out of FeedBrain, you'd have to do something like what I suggested, which is go touch grass. Realize that there is... I just chastise people for saying stuff isn't real. But, just like a complete non-efficacy to a left project that it takes place online. Now, it's not saying it's useless. There is uses to it in terms of like consciousness, for example, if you want to call it class consciousness. But you can't just say that we live in the same conditions that Lenin identified as being requisite for revolution. It's just not the same conditions. And conditions is why like Lenin's not just a Marxist. He's a Russian Marxist in the early half of the 19th or 20th century. It's not the same as a Chinese Marxist in the mid 20th century. So you have to identify the conditions of this, whatever they are. Our conditions are this feedocracy in large part. And if you can't identify like solutions to that, the worst thing to do is to just get carried along like a leaf in a stream of content and continuously react to every fucking bit of news about Joe Rogan and whether Hassan Piker bought a house or not. Like, this is just so dumb. But I'm not a planner. I don't know what to do. I'm trying to offer some tangible alternative of a way of thinking that's worthwhile to do. And that's not like me saying I know how to think and I'm teaching you how to do it. It's me figuring out how to think. because I know what I think is wrong. I know that this weird reaction, outrage cycle, it's the definition of insane and the definition of useless. But how do you do collective stuff, touching grass collectively? Because this is not like any of this is bad. Like, I'm sure this has changed my mind about a lot of things. I think if you're watching this, you're probably your mind is interested. You're probably reading. You're probably going to school also. So I don't know. I do think... oh, God. I do think that people seem to have a really naive view of systems, and I think the one thing that I don't have is a naive view of systems. I think it's almost impossible to change a system unless there is a wrench thrown into the gear, unless there's like a collapse or a big failure. And the bigger the system is, the longer it's been going on. So if you have like a nation state that's 400 years old, you're not going to just decide, well, you can't do reformism because you can't improve this process incrementally. Like, it's not up to you to decide whether reformism or incrementalism is good or bad. You don't get to sit there on your computer and make that decision. That's not the way systems work. But I think crises are produced. Capitalism thrives off creating its own crises. And again, capitalism, however you want to design it. But if you know what you think and you know what's useful, then you can be your community, your friends, can know what to do once that crisis strikes. And then you can get some sort of foothold. And then you might lose again. And then you can wait till the next one strikes. So I don't know that this is going to last forever, because it doesn't seem like it can last forever. But yeah. Don't just do something, stand there. Anyway, thanks for coming to a live stream about live streams. I hope this was valuable. If you've got any shit to say that you haven't said yet, put it in the comments, and I'll read them. We're not doing nothing, but we're not doing, I don't know what we're doing. Yeah, I'll just say, thanks. I think my thing's lagging. I don't know if it's lagging for you, if that's just on my screen. Yeah. If you just showed up, I talked about Marshall McLuhan a hell of a lot, and I've read him a hell of a lot. I've been on his street. It's not hard. It's right down the road. But all right, take care. Great talk. I like that you guys are funny. It's like you have a sense of humor. I've seen other streams where it seems like the audience doesn't have much of a sense of humor. So we'll see what happens. Again, I'm going to try to... I like the Fridays. I'm going to try to keep on with it. But got to keep my anxiety in check. So Thanks so much, and I will end the stream now.